Hi, can you hear me? All right. Okay. All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Yeah. So this week we're gonna have the midterm exam later this week. So today is the lecture. We're gonna be reviewing questions from prior exams. We're gonna solve those questions together, right? We're gonna go over it and see, so that you can know what you can expect in the exam later this week. And then in the second half of this week, the exam will be made available, and you'll be giving, I think it's three days, I believe, 3 or 4 days, starting on Thursday, I believe. Yeah, Thursday will be made available, and you can choose any particular day to take it, but you do have to take it. Once you start, you can't stop, right? You have to continue. You'll need the whole lecture time, about 100 minutes, to complete about 25 questions, I believe, something like that. It is open book, right? So you can use your slides, your homework. You can take a look at that source code material. You can make your own material. You can look at GitHub repositories, just so that you, or even the review for this exam. So feel free to use any of that material. You cannot use excuse me, an IDE. So VS Code or IntelliJ, right? So where you can actually run code, that's not allowed. But any other material that's printed material or access the source code that you have written or I have written that has been made available, or the slides, that certainly can be accessed. Okay. So that's later this week. Also, for the first half of the semester, we've been working mostly on the front end, right? By using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, routing, Redux, state management, right? To implement applications entirely running on a browser, right? So we've reached a level of competency, right? That we can pretty much build anything we want in the using the front end, right? But there's a limit of what can we build. In particular, being able to save state permanently, right? So that if we log in, right, we authenticate and we build content, right? We create new posts, we delete stuff, we update things that we've written before. There's no way for us to save that permanently. And so for that, we'll need to garner the support of a server and a database. Let's see the question on the chat. Up until now, can I assume that we worked on client-side applications? Yes, exactly. Up to this point, we've been working on client-side applications. So starting on Monday, next week, right, we'll be working on the server side, right, server applications, right? So where we can provide server support to our client-side applications, right? So that client-side applications can then save their work, right, permanently on the server. So they'll be posting or getting or deleting or putting data to a server, and the server will then implement those CRUD operations, right, to permanently make those changes available through either to a file system or to, even better, to a database, right? And for that, we're going to be using a non-relational database called Mongo, right, where we are going to be able to permanently store our data. Okay, so that's upcoming starting next week. So the first half of the semester is front-end development, and the second half of the semester is server-side development. Okay. Anyways, that's the plan for the next couple weeks. But first, let's review some of the questions that you can expect later on this week in the first exam. Okay. Any questions before we get started?
Hi, Professor. I have a quick question.
What's up?
Yeah, so for the exam one, because I only syllabus it says that exam one on the second lecture of the week, but I remember that you were saying that we can actually finish it at our convenience. Like I don't have the exam open.
Correct. You can, if you Can everybody mute? I hear some talking in the background. Yeah, so you can come. I'm on later this week. I'm going to have a lecture like we always have, and you're welcome to come. There won't be a lecture, right? I'm going to be proctoring the exam if you want to come during that time, but you don't have to, right? If you want to come and you feel that you rather take it synchronously with other folks and me being present there, you can ask questions. Then obviously you're welcome to come this upcoming Thursday evening, but you don't have to. You can instead take it earlier that Thursday because the exam will be available earlier that Thursday, right? And it will be available throughout Friday and Saturday, right? So you can either come and take it synchronous with me, or if you prefer, you can take it asynchronously at your own leisure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at the questions from prior semesters. Now, many of these questions are basically asking to see if you understand certain concepts that are available in the language of choice, which is JavaScript, as well as many of the techniques that we've been practicing for navigating, like routing and links, as well as state management. Oh, that's another thing. So the material that is going to be in the exam, it goes covers all the way through from the beginning, from HTML, CSS, certainly JavaScript, all the way up to React JS, right? All the way up to what we covered last week, right? Which was maintaining state using the use state hook, right? Where we were able to modify Boolean variables or strings or numbers or objects or arrays, right? And using the use state hook, right? That creates a state variable and also provides a mutator that allows you to modify the value of that variable, right? Which allow you to update with an increment of a integer, or allow you to flip a Boolean variable, or change a property in an object, or append to an array, right? So that up to that point. Now, what's not going to be in the exam is what we covered later last week, right? In the later half of last week, which we talked about Redux, right? Reducers and dispatch, right? Selectors and all that. That's not going to be in the exam. So no Redux whatsoever, no application statewide state management, okay? But yes, the use state hook. And I just realized that this exam does not have use state questions. But basically what you can expect is the kind of exercise that we saw in the assignment 4 that we covered last week, right? Last Tuesday, maybe. We went over and built several examples of manipulating different data types, use state variables of different data types, right? So, and there were small little, pieces of code, right? And you could expect, a question like that. And imagine me, well, I'll replace a lot of the variables and functions with placeholders or blanks, and I'll then ask you to fill in the blanks, right? So that so you're implementing a particular behavior or a particular function, okay? So anyway, so let's go over the questions that I do have for you. So this first one is, asking you to see if you understand how you can work with arrays in JavaScript, right? So here you have a simple integer array, right, 1 through 5, and it's asking you that you manipulate the array. Well, not manipulate the array, but you compute a new array, right? That's going to be stored in W. So you're given an input array, and you want to calculate a new array W that contains these values, right? So basically, this the output is basically the inputs, but one value, number 3, has been replaced by number 6, right? So that's so how would you do that? So here we give you several blanks that you have to fill out, right? That would fulfill the this problem, right? So let's see what would be. So this looks like some variable dot some function, I imagine, right? Because it has a parentheses. Right, so what variable, and then applied a function that calls something, right? And this is a parameter of the function, right? Would convert this into that. Well, we know that we can manipulate, we can build new arrays out of prior arrays using one of the array iterator functions, right? So we have a whole bunch of them. We have filter, we have find, index, we have map, we have several, and they one in particular, if we remember, builds an array of the same length as the input array, right? So if this one has 5 elements, this one's creating 5 elements. There's one in particular, right, that creates the same number of elements as the input array. So for instance, what we could do is that we take Q as the first value. So Q dot, so map calculates an array of the same length, right? And then it invokes a parameter function passing the each one of the items to that function, so that you can then calculate what the new value for the new array would be, right? Whatever this function returns is what it ends up going into the new array, right? So it looks like so this function is supposed to return the first time around 1, the second time around 2, the third time around it's supposed to not return 3 but R6, then return 4, and then return 5. So this function is supposed to do that: 1, 2, 6, 4, 5, right? So here you get all the values, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to write a function, right, that compares 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, against something, and if it's true, if this is true, then we return one value, or otherwise we return the other value. So basically, the option would be that if we could say, right, if A is the value 3, for instance, right, if A is the value 3, then this should be returned 6, right? Otherwise, we should return the original value A, right? So for instance, if A1 is 3, no, then return 1. If A is 2, I'm sorry, is 2 equal to 3? No, then return 2. Is 3 equal to 3? Yes, then return 6, right? So this would be 6, this would be A, right? So this would be, if A is equal to 3, then return 6, otherwise return A. That make sense? Now, most of my answers, most of these blanks can be filled in by just using regular ASCII text, right? A, B, C, D, combination of letters. So A through Z, and the numerals 0 through 9. Very, very seldom would you have to use any other character, right? But sometimes you have to. And I will let you know when I'm expecting you to use other things other than just alphanumeric characters. Okay. There will be some acronyms, so make sure you know all your acronyms, HTTP, HTML, URL, CSS, SAP, DOM, right? JSON, right? So make sure you know all your acronyms. And I will ask you, what does each letter mean? Here you have an example of HTTP and DOM, right? Make sure you know SPA, single page applications, right? I guess you don't need to know SQL, since it's not the topic of this course. So here's another simple example that I'll give you a snippet of code and then ask you, right, fill in the blanks so that a certain behavior happens. So for instance, I describe the behavior, right? I describe the behavior, and then I ask you fill in the blanks so that you fulfill that behavior. And so here's a label. Well, I haven't said that it's a label, but we have here some attribute equal to some value. We have the body of some tag, or we don't know what it is yet. We have an input field that has several attributes equal to these values, okay, but we don't know the attributes. So it's asking, okay, so these are the behaviors, right? The input field, so fill in the blanks above so that the input field, so this input field, right, has an initial value of Alice. That makes sense, right? So we say value equal Alice, that will fulfill that requirement. And then when you click on first name, when you click here on first name, the input field gets focused, right? Meaning that if you click there, then you can start typing in the input field, right? You don't have to click on the input field. You can click on the first name. So how do we achieve that? Well, one way to achieve it is that the ID of the input field is equal to the for attribute of a label, right? So just that one clue, right? You can fill out 3 blanks, right? This has to be ID, this has to be for attribute, and this has to be label to be able to implement that behavior. Then when you delete the text, if you delete all the text in the input field, then a grade hint text appears that says Jane. Right? So Jane here appears, right, when you delete the entire piece of text, this grade add background. So how do we can achieve that is by using placeholder for this. Yes, right. Very good. Oh, also, if you hover, right, if you hover over this input field, okay, then you get a small little tooltip appears, right? That kind of gives you a hint of what it is that we're asking you to type in that input field. So you can, and the text says of the input field says, type your first name. So we can achieve that by using the attribute title here. Yes. So here's another one. Consider the following code snippet, right? And so we're giving you an array, and that array has 4 numbers, and it says, fill in the blanks so that Z ends up with the following values. So this is one case for a question where I do want you to use a special character, okay? In particular, I want you to use the ... the spreader operator, okay? And I give you what characters you could use: periods, commas, colons, semicolons, parentheses, and or square brackets, okay? So how can we do this, right? We notice that these values is basically these values, but it has an additional value at the beginning. See that? So somehow, right, we need to fill these 2 values here to achieve that. Well, we could use the spreader operator to copy all these onto Z by using ... Y, right, in number 2. And for number 1, we can just put the 2, 3, 4 in front, right? So that would give you, 2, 3, 4, and then this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? All these here spread over here. Make sense? So here's an example of a question that spans across multiple components, right? So we have two components. We have two components. Sometimes there's three. So this question seems to be something about routes, right? I won't write questions that are tricky in that they just don't work, right? And the right answer is, well, just, you had to realize that the whole thing did not work, right? Instead, you should go into as with an attitude of, well, how can I make this work? That if you fill in the right answers, right, this is going to work as expected. Okay. Also, you should go into this as with an attitude of, that these should all be generic answers, right? Generic in that you should not try to hard code stuff, right? So that particular a question does work, right? But only for that specific set of values, right? And so try to keep it as generic as possible. But let's see. So this says fill in the blanks above, so that if you click on the button, so this is the button right there, sets EWQ to 49283. Right. So at the end, EWQ is 49283. Right. Answers are case sensitive. Include special characters such as periods, commas, colons. Yeah, I think you need to. Yeah. So let's see if we can figure this out. So they're giving us a clue that the EWQ is 49283. So it's right here, right? So EWQ. So here's EWQ. Is going to be, well, here we have 9283. We don't have the 4 though. We need the 49283. And so let's see what else can we figure out over here. So this looks like a function call. This looks like a spreader, right? A spreader. And so what's the, some things are by constraint, right? You can figure this out only by constraint, by just parsing the outer code. You can figure out what goes where, not knowing what it's doing, right? But notice that this is the only function call, and the only function call here are, well, there's two, right? There's this one, use params, which we're importing from a route dump, and there's JKL itself, right? I doubt here we're trying to call ourselves again recursively. That would make no sense. But so the more sensible thing is that here we're using use params. And so that use params gives us a clue that we are extracting from the URL a parameter, a path variable or path parameter called DSA. So somebody had to declare in a route a placeholder called DSA. So if we go back, notice that there's only one route, and one of the routes, right, has a parameter, right, a blank called two, right, that has a colon in front of it. So this must be where we are declaring that placeholder, right, that we said that it's equal to DSA. So this must be DSA, right? That must be DSA. This must be elements, right? Because route, the correct syntax for the route is that you have a path and you have an element. Makes sense. So this means that, when this route is fulfilled, right? The path is fulfilled. We render an element called JKL. So here's JKL that parses using use params, parses the DSA parameter. And then it's used to do what? You notice that we're not using it for anything just yet. So it must be that we're using it here somewhere, right? So the spreader is kind of giving us a hint that we are taking that array and we're spreading it across the new array, right? Because this must be EW, EWQ, right? Because then we printed. This can't be anything else, right? So that must be EWQ. So we are putting in front some value, and then we're spreading the array behind it, right? So this must be 9283, but in front of it, we're putting a 4, I believe, isn't it? Yeah, we're putting a 4. So it must be that we are appending something that we're passing as an argument, right? That's the only way for this to work. So this must be DSA spreader, right? ASD. ASD is initialized as 9283. So that would fulfill that, right? So use params, EWQ, DSA, and then ASD, okay? So we need to know how we're passing this 4. So that means that this parameter DSA, this DSA, needs to be the value 4. How? Well, because that's how this is going to be mapped, right? When we click on button, the URL encodes a value as part of the URL. It must be the value 4, right? And so this would work if we put the number 4, I guess it would work, right? But really is it's an expression, so it's being evaluated on the fly of some variable who has the value 4. The only other variable here is SDK. It's the only one, and it must be set to the value 4, right? And so that we can append SDK here in the route in the link. Okay, so this would read QW1 SDF, which evaluates to 4, right? So that it matches the DSA, right? So that this element JKL can be read, so it can parse DSA. It can use params to parse DSA and then append it in front of the ASD array and store it in WQ so that we can display it here in WQ. That make sense?
I'm kind of lost. So do you mind explaining? You said that you don't want us to hard code, but when you were looking at the second snippet, yeah, BNM, you said that SDF would be the number 4. So SDF would be set to just 4. Like the blank value 4 would be 4. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, because these, when you assign, right, on the right-hand side, usually it's a literal string or literal integer or literal value.
Okay.
Like over here, we did a literal array,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is a variable that is, or constant, that is receiving this value. So this too would be assigned a literal value.
Okay.
Perhaps a better version of this question would show you an example of using BNM here, maybe that I am calling BNM, and then I'm saying the parameter SDF is equal to blank.
Okay.
And you would have, well, what do I need to store there so that this happens?
Right. And then would you mind explaining again, after the colon in the route, like what does that colon represent, and like, yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, so this is basically what we've been doing in the assignment, assignment 3. And when we do the routing and we append as part of the URL, the code, the course ID or the assignment ID, right? And then we parse the value from the URL, right? So that we can then look up the correct course or look up the correct assignment. So this is doing the same thing, right? So this link encodes a 4 here, right? So this would read /q11 /4, right? So that when we click it, the URL at the top reads /q11 /4. And so there's a route here that gets triggered or gets activated if the pattern of the URL matches the pattern declared here in the path, right? So /q11 /4 would match this pattern, right? And which is starts with q11 and then follows. Notice that there's a colon here, meaning that Unlike this one is a hard-coded little string Q11, this instead, whatever I put in here, is not a little string. Instead, is used to pattern match against the URL, right? So that if it matches, it parses the 4, grabs the 4, and it assigns it to whatever variable you declare here, right? So for instance, if we call it a, and this value, this name of a variable has to be DSA, right? Because use params parses the URL and it matches it with one of these routes, right? And says, oh, it matches this one, right? With the variable DSA, and it would parse the value of that and give you, well, this returns an entire object whose key, one of the keys in that object is DSA with the value 4, right? Because it pattern matches with the URL. And then you can use it to append it at the beginning of an array. So its function ABNF equals 4, the same as constant. Yes, it is. No, it's your first, Dylan, it's your first version. Who was asking that? Did that make sense?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. So this one is trying to ask you about if you understand about the spreader operator, right? And so that and what happens when there's a collision of variables in the of properties. Two objects might have the same property. In that case, there has to be an override, right? That one wins over the other. So which one wins? So let's take an example here. We have a Q that has properties A and B with values 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. And then we have W here that has one placeholder. This is a little assignment, right? That you're assigning some key, some value, comma, another key and another value, right? And so we're asking you that what do we fill out in here so that in the end W ends up with these values of A, B, and C. Okay, so let's take a look. What can we do? So for let's see, and again here I am saying that you can use special characters like commas or periods or square brackets or things like that. Basically, I'm asking you to use the spreader operator, right? So let's see what can I do. Well, I want B to end up being 3, 4, 5, right? So I could just fill out in number 3. I could fill out 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, so that would solve that. How about C? Well, C, I could do C, and then this would be 4, 5, 6. That would solve that too. What about A, 1, 2, 3? Right. So what I don't want you to do is that for 1, you could, I guess, right? The right answer would be that A : 1, 2, 3. Right. So again, that's way too complex. Right. So that's why I usually say most of my questions, unless I say it otherwise, right? You should be able to answer it with a single variable, right? Or a single, just the regular characters from A to Z, right? And letters and the numbers 0 through 9, right? So I would not expect you to write an entire expression here, right? Other than perhaps the spreader operator, but nothing more complex than that. So no, A:123 would not be one of the solutions that I'm looking for, okay? Perhaps I can be a little more specific with these questions and say, you know, the only operation that is allowed is the, or the only a special character that you can use here is the period, right? You can't use square brackets, right? You can't use colons, okay? And so so if I'm more explicit, then you would know, right? But so what you could do here is spread Q, right, on W and say, you know, dot, 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 Q. And then you get the A is equal to 1, 2, 3, right? Now the trick though is that you also get B is equal to 2, 3, 4, right? But you want B to be 3, 4, 5, not 2, 3, 4. But that's okay, because notice that you have B here being, you know, resetting back to 3, 4, 5. Overwriting any other B that you might have inherited, right, from the spreader operator, overriding the 2, 3, 4, and so it ends up being 3, 4, 5. Now this question could have been rewritten where the spreader is at the end, right, is at the end, and B ends up being actually 2, 3, 4, right? It overrides any value. It overrides any value that you had before for B, right? So yeah. So why don't you explore that as a additional question that you might want to solve on your own, right? What happens if the spreader was at the end as opposed to at the beginning? Okay. So here's another question. This one's pretty involved. I'm going to leave it last. It's question number A. We'll come back to this later. Can you do something like Q sub 0? Well, not for this question. I don't want you writing complex expressions, right? Where you use combinations of colons and square brackets and things like that. Does the order of overwriting matter? Yes, right? If the spreader is at the end, right, then and it brings in another B, then that B wins over any prior Bs, right? So last one wins, basically. Okay, so we'll come back to 8 later because that's pretty involved. I don't want to get anybody confused there. Okay, so let's look at this other one. So we have an array of strings, and it says that it's being assigned to a constant. I'm not sure if you already said, but is there an answer key to the practice exam? No, this is it, me talking, and I'm telling you what all these values are. Yep. So, well, actually, can I even write on this? I could write. Can I? Oh, I guess I can. Yeah. Oh my goodness, why is this so slow? Wow, what is the matter with this? Let me see. So big. Okay. Okay. Oh, I guess I could just fill out here, right? Okay. Why it be possible to post an answer key? Would it be possible to? Yeah, I'm filling it out now. So okay, so let's see for so we're oops. Why is this highlighting it now? Stop highlighting it. Okay. So one is we're assigning the array to some variable, presumably Q, right? So that we can then iterate over it, right? So that at the end, W ends up with QWE. Is there a practice exam available on Canvas? No, this is the practice exam. And so this here, as we notice that what we're doing is that we're iterating over Q, looking for something so that we end up with W equal to Q to QWE. And so to do that, we could use find, right, as opposed to find index, right? Because find, iterates over each item, right, up until, and then compare. And here we're comparing. If this is true, it means that it finds it, right, and it returns the actual value that causes to be true, not the index, right, 0, 1, 2, 3, but the actual value that causes to be true. Right? So when this goes B, when EWQ, right, compare, and I'm looking for something, then I want this to be true when it finds it, so for this to be QWE. So that means that I'm gonna go look for, right, B is equal to EWQ? No, that's not the one I'm looking for. Is it equal to DSA? No. Is it equal to QWE? Yes. If it is, then it's gonna return the value which caused it, which is QWE, right? So for that, this would be find. Right, and then the number 3 would be well, you could do two things. It could be B, right? It could be B, and then it's being compared against QWE. This would be QWE, or right, another alternative would be for this to be instead, right, A, and then this would be the value 2, right? That would be an alternative, right? Could be either one. Oops. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. 2. So either one would work, right? And I'll accept either one. Okay. I never realized how terrible preview was. Okay, so let's take a look at this other one. So we're giving you these 3 checkboxes. So before B stands for value and A for the index. Yes, correct. Yes, all these functions, find, filter, map, right? All of them take at least 2 arguments, the function. The first one is the actual value, right, as you're iterating, whereas the second argument usually is the index, right, as you're iterating over the array. And that's common to all the functions. Okay, so consider the following set of checkboxes, and it says if you click the text A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, then the button on the left is selected. Meaning, if I click on the letters, right, the checkbox appears next to the checkbox, right? Then so fill in the blanks below to implement the behavior described. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So we have so there's 2 ways that we can achieve this with a radio buttons. You can either have a label that has the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and then linked to an input field, a radio button, right, by the radio button's ID, right? So the label would have a for attribute that references the ID of the input field. So that's one way to do that. The other way to do that, the same behavior, is to wrap the input field with a label tag, right, with the text embedded in the label and next to the input field. So that's the second way of doing it. So this one is taking that second approach, right? So it's what it's doing is that so notice that these are all types. So these must be all input fields. So these are inputs. So 3 is input. So 3 is input. And that they all have to be of type checkbox. Right, so this is checkbox. And you know, even though I'm trying to fool you into thinking that these are radios, right? They're not. Right? These names have no effect on the input field, right? Other than, you know, it would group them, for instance, but that has an effect on the behavior that we're describing. So remember, we had a similar question in one of the quizzes. What is the difference between checkbox and radio? So the checkboxes render as squares like this, right? Whereas radios render as circles. And also checkboxes are meant to have the connotation that you can select more than one, whereas radio buttons are meant to be mutually exclusive, right? So that, for instance, if you have a yes, no, you would use a radio button, but checkboxes, right, you would choose all that apply. Okay, so yeah, so you can ignore name equal radio here. Notice that you have the IDs. Although we don't need the IDs for what we're doing here. So you would end up just using labels, right, for number 2 to fill in that that behavior, right? So this would be label. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Oh, interesting. I can't move it. Uh-oh. Just stuck somewhere. All right, whatever. Can I? Uh-oh. Ah! What's going on? Wow, preview, really? It's terrible. Let me close this. It crashed. My computer crashed. Wait a minute. Okay. Open with preview. Okay, let's keep going. All right. So for this one, okay, so this one's also fairly involved. I really don't like this question, and I'm going to have to rewrite it quite a bit, but it's interesting just to go over it, right? Let's see if you can follow along, right? So, you know, if I'm going to have anything as complicated as this, right, I'm going to have a lot more instructions. So this one's, let's see if you can follow along, right? So this says that fill in the blanks below so that clicking the button, the console prints the following, right? 321, 432, 999, 6354, and 765, right? And the only console here is this one, right? That's the console. And printing the variable POI, which is not declared anywhere here. So it must be 6, right? 6 must be the one who's declaring POI. Although I guess it could be this one too, right? It could be either 2 or 6. So 2 or 6 must be POI, right? Okay, so let's see, what else can we decide here? 7 definitely needs to be on click, right? So we can fill that out. Okay, so 7 must be on click. Okay. What else? Then we have here 8 is calling some function, right? And the only function that we have here is TRE, right? That is the only function available, so it must be TRE here for number 8, right? So let's have here number 8 must be TRE. TRE, okay. And then what else? Let's see. So that's TRE. So here we're passing to TRE, we're passing a 999 and we're passing something else. So this 999 ends up going here, UIT. So UIT is equal to 999, right? And what are we doing here? Let's see, this looks like a, what is that? That looks like a iterating over an array and applying one of those functions, right? The filter function, the map function, some function that takes as argument another function that the iterator, right? That as you're iterating, you're passing each value. And what is it doing? This is very similar to what we were doing earlier, right? When we were calculating an array and we were replacing one of the values, right? Which actually, isn't this what it's doing, right? We have this array, right? It looks like it prints out the same array, prints out the same exact array, except that we have replaced the value 999. So we are replacing 543 with the value 999. Yeah. Okay, so now we have a clue of what this is doing, right? So so this one probably is just the array that we are iterating over, right? So let's write that down. So 1 must be EWQ. Where'd it go? So 1 must be EWQ. And I am iterating, basically recreating this array, except that I want to skip over 543 and I want a 999 in there, right? So so this must be EWQ. This must be map because I am recreating the array, right? So 4 must be map, right? So 4 must be map. That as I'm iterating, I'm passing. These are the variable that I'm iterating over. So probably it's this variable, right? That it's being compared against something, right? So this must be IUI, right? 5 must be IUI. IUI. And IUI is being compared against something, right? So actually, do we know what that is yet? No, we don't. So IUI is being compared against something so that if it is equal, then IUI is being compared. So IUI, we know 5 is IUI, right? Yeah. They compared against YTR, So YTR must be 2, no? Must be 2. Right, okay, so it's being compared against that. And if it is equal, I like to return the new value, otherwise return the old value. See that? Right? So yeah, so this must be the yeah, so this must be YTR, 2 must be YTR. 2 must be YTR. So that so if it is equal, I'm going to return the new value, which is 999. There it is. See that? I'm passing 999 as the new value. I'm returning the new value. So 3 must be UYT. UYT. And then it returns, or it returns that, right? Okay, what else? We're missing here 6. What's 6? Okay, 6 must be what we're printing. So 6 must be POI. POI. And finally 9. So 9 must be the value that we're replacing, right? We're saying, okay, that's what we're passing, right? This is what we're passing. So this is YTR here. And so we are passing 543. So we want to replace 543 that you get here, which is YTR. When you find it, I want to replace it with 999 or keep the old one. So 9 must be 543, the value that we want to replace. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I don't like that question. Okay, so consider this following code snippet. So, so this one is an easy one, right? So we had this is being assigned to a local variable, so which must be Q, right? So 3 must be Q. And then we assign B the value 2. So that means that we are doing some of the array operations, filter, map, find index, right? So as I'm iterating, this is probably W, right? Because we're comparing W against something. So this must be W. W. If W is equal to something, then it returns 2. So how is it that, so I'm guessing that as when it reaches some value, when it finds it, it returns 2, the position where it's in. So 4 must be find index, right? Find index. So find index. And 2 must be the value at which I find that then returns a 2. The only value that is in position 2 must be 33. Okay, so this is 33. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So this is consider the code snippet below, right? Fill the blanks above. So the console prints 1 if you click on LVP 4 times. So you click this button 4 times and you click on the POI 3 times. So you click this 4 times and you click this 3 times. In the end, the console prints out 1. Okay. All right, let's see. So there are 2 buttons. So as we click on the buttons, what is it doing? It's calling, both of them are calling a function. So the only function here is this function, right? That's the only function here. And so this one's calling a function WER. So it must be that 2 is WER, right? So WER, 2. And what else can we figure this out? So yeah, 2 is WER, 2 is WER, and so they're both columns. So what do they call? They call them with a new object, that contains some older object spread, and then we are overriding a parameter ERT of that object with the old value of ERT plus 1. And looks like POI is doing the same thing, but minus 3. So one is adding 1, and the other is subtracting 3. And remember, we're calling this 4 times, so we're adding 4, and then we're subtracting 3 times, so we're subtracting 9, right? So basically, it's plus 4, right, minus 9, so it becomes what, minus 5, right? Minus 5. And so whatever ERT is -5, whatever originally was, right? And notice that what we're printing is that ERT. So ERT, for it to print as a 1, it would have to be already a 6, right? Because in the end, we are subtracting 5. So it must, and so if it ends up being a 1, then its initial value must be a 6, right? Okay, so where is this object, EWQ? Well, there's only one declaration of an object here, which must be 1, and the object is called QWE, right? That's what the object, so 1 must be QWE. Okay, and it must have a property called ERT, right? That object must have a property called ERT, right? So that 3 must be ERT. ERT for 3. And it must have an initial value. And I think we said that because we're adding 4 and subtracting 9, and the result needs to be 1, then the initial value must be 6. So the initial value must be 6. So 4 must be 6. Okay. And all right, so this one we have several radio buttons, right? And remember, the radio buttons are supposed to behave mutually exclusive, meaning that if you have 3 radio buttons in a group, then only one of them can be checked any one time, right? And but if you have 2 sets of radio buttons, right, with a yes, no, and colors or something, right? These are mutually exclusive. It can't be both yes and no, right? It can be only either or. But then these other sets are also mutually exclusive, but amongst each other, right? They don't affect each other, each group. So we can group them, and the way we group them is by using the same name, not the same ID. Careful, the same name, and then they're grouped, and so the browser knows, which ones are excluding the other. Okay, so how do we do that? So consider the following sets of radio. One set of radio buttons is for choosing a single color, and the other is selecting a single movie genre, right? And notice that we have the colors here. We have the movie genres over here. So using color as genre, fill in the blanks above to group the radio buttons into a color group and a genre group, right? So that you can select only one color and only one genre. But selecting a color does not affect selecting a genre. Okay, so for that, this needs to be an input field of type radio, right? And then these must be all names that we are going to use to group them correctly, right? So one must be input. So this must be input. The type must be radio. Okay. These must be the names. Name. And then we want to group together all the colors, and we're going to group together all the genres, right? So 4, 5, and 6 must be colors or color, right? Whereas 7, 8, and 9 must be genre, right? So let's see. So this must be color, and 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. Oops. Uh-oh, where'd it go? Ah! Where'd it go? Color. And the other one must be genre. And I need 3 of these. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Okay, let's see this other one. Oh, look at what color went out. What's going on? All right, so we have a React component, and we have XYZ that is destructing something that is being passed, but it has initial value. And it says that if you click the button twice, so if you click this button twice, right, the console displays 20, after clicking the button twice. Okay, so 6 must be on click, right? So that's an easy one, right? So on click. And it calls a function called ASD. So the only function here, well, actually we have two functions, right? We have this function and we have this other function. Right? So one of them must be called ASD, right? Because we are calling that function here. But this function is calling another function ERT. So the only other function is this one. So that must be ERT, right? So 4 must be ERT. So that means that this one must be ASD, right? 5 must be yes. Oh wait, no, this must be ERT. And then the other one is ASD. Okay. So what is ASD doing? Well, it's calling ERT and passing the value of REW. I don't know what REW is. So let's see. Can we figure it out? What REW is? Let's see. REW. Let's see. REW plus 5, right? And so what's REW doing? Is calling ERT passing REW plus 5 and then just storing it locally in a variable. Now this variable, I don't see a declaration for it. It can't be this because these are constants, right? You cannot change the constant. So it must be a declaration of some variable that can change. So this must be this one. So 3 must be REW, right? Right. So this calls it and updates the value to 5, so plus 5, and then I click it again, and then it plus 5 again. So by clicking the button, it's incrementing the value of whatever that is by 5. If I click it twice, then it's incrementing it by 10. So that means that it needs to be initialized to 10 first, so that I can get to 20 in 2 clicks, right? So it needs to be initialized here to QWE, needs to be initialized to 10 already. So where's QWE? The only other place that it can be initialized is in 1 here, right? And its initial value must be 10. So 2, which is a placeholder, initialized to 10. So 10. Oops. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this. This is a question about destructors. So we are declaring an object, well, 2 objects, right? And one of them is spreading the other object on this, right? So, and it's being spread kind of like in the middle of the other object. So we have declaring two constants or 2 properties. Here we're declaring another constant, we're spreading it, and it could be maybe overriding some properties, we don't know yet. Then you have another 2 properties, right? And then we are assigning either CXZ or this one, either one, right? I don't know which one, to extract SDF and ASD from that object, right? And assign it to local constants SDF and ASD. And then we're printing it out to the console. So it says that the console that this prints out as 456, and then it prints 645, right? So this must be 456. So this must be 456, right? So if this is ASD is 456, where could it get that value? Where could it possibly grab that value? Well, looks like the only place that I could get it is from this 456, right? Can't get it from here, can't get it from there. You can't get it from here either because none of these is 456. So it must be this one. So this has to be ASD, right? It has to. It's the only way for this to work, right? So 3 is ASD. Right? And so this prints out 456. This prints out 654. So SDF is 654. And so where can we get that 654? So the only place where I see 654 is this one here, right? So this could be SDF. Is there any other way that we can get that 654? I don't believe so, right? Because it gets added here, which then needs to be destructed from here, right? So this must be CXZ. It's the only way. Well, actually, let's see. It could have been that this is QWE, right? If this is QWE, then this would work too, because SDF, this could be SDF, and you grab the 654. But then, where would you get the ASD? You couldn't, right? Because it's only one constructor, one destructor, right? You can't extract from both, from QWE and from CXZ. Instead, the only way is for this to be CXZ, right, and not QWE, right? So this is tricky, right? If you put QWE, it works for SDF, but it doesn't work for ASD, right? It has to be CXZ, which works for both, right? So one has to be CXZ, right? CXZ. So okay, and then we said 2 must be SDF, right? Let's see. Okay. Shouldn't 3 be QWE.ASD? 3. QWE.ASD. So again, most of my questions should not require you to use any special characters like period, right? So if you have to write an expression, then just understand that there's an easier answer. And so what I'll do is I'll make it clear on all my questions. Maybe I'll put it at the top as a big instruction of my exam. All the answers are just ASCII, right? Letters from A through Z and numbers 0 through 9. You should not need a period. Okay, I think we don't have to, because ZZ already has the inside using, yes, correct, Yiming Zhu, right? You don't have to, right? Because if you have here CXZ, QWE already contains this, right? And you can just pick it out using ASD, right? Using ASD. Well, also, your answer in 3, you're saying QWE.ASD. So QWE.ASD would give you 1, 2, 3, not 4, 5, 6. Also, Heather is saying, isn't SDF equal 3, 4, 5? SDF. SDF. Wait a minute. So this prints 4, 5, 6. So SD is 4, 5, 6, which is this one. And then prints 654, which is this one, right? So this is SDF over here. So this must be SDF, right, Heather? Isn't SDF 3, 4, 5? Oh, okay, yeah. So this is so yeah. So SDF is 3, 4, 5 at first, yes, but then it gets overwritten. by QWE, which has SDF equal to 645. See that? So yeah, so there's actually two trick questions here, right? That you see SDF here being declared as 345, and so at first you say, oh, maybe not. But notice that it's both, right? So SDF here, so it overrides whatever older version of SDF was, right? So that it gets you get the new value of 645, right? And also, right, there's another trick question. Well, trick question is that both ASD is 456, but then it used to be before it used to be 123, right? And so you get it copied here as ASD is equal to 123, but right after that we override ASD again by 456, right? Okay, so an easier one, I think. You have a header. I'm not sure why I didn't print the color. Uh-oh, confused. What's up? What do you want to go over?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So in CXC, ASD is set to 456, right?
Here, yes.
Yeah, and so it prints out 456, and but
Correct.
then shouldn't SDF also be overridden to 345 because of
So this is SDF, right? Not ASD.
yeah,
This is ASD.
right? But then SDF would be 345 because it's being set as
SDF
345.
Well, first this sets it to 345, but then this spreader, right, copies all this.
Oh,
here.
it goes in order. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so this one, I don't know why I didn't print in color, but this is supposed to be white text on a red background. And so here's my header, and the header has the text, you know, I'm white on red, and it has two attributes, right? One is set to QWE, and the other is set to WER. Okay, and so down below here we have some CSS that declares these four rules, right? Two of them are using the pound sign in front. The other two are using periods in front of them, right? Meaning that one is referencing an ID and the other one is referencing a class, right? So basically the question here is whether one is an ID. So if this is an ID, then these rules would apply, right? If this were a class, then this rule would apply. Make sense? Same thing with this one, right? If this were an ID, then this rule would apply. But if this were a class, then this rule would apply. So the question is, what is one and two? You know, is one an ID, the other one is class, or both IDs, both are classes? Well, that can't be, right? You can't have both be IDs and both be classes. So one of them has to be an ID and the other one has to be a class. But then which one? Is this the ID and this is a class? Or is this a class and this is the ID? Okay. So let's see. Let's try it out. Say one is class and two is an ID. So if one is class, then these rules would apply, right? These two rules would apply, right? It would do what? The class would set the color to be red and the foreground to be white, which is what we want, right? We want the foreground to be white. We want the background to be red. That's perfect. So that works, class. But what about the ID, WER? Now the WER ID sets that the background color should be blue. Now there's a collision, right? We have two rules that are fighting it out over the background color. Which one wins? Well, the ID wins because it is a more specific rule, right? Classes can apply to multiple elements, whereas an ID can only apply to a single element, right? Because it's a unique identifier. So rules that are more specific win over rules that are less specific. Make sense? So in conclusion, it cannot be that this is a class and that is an ID, right? Because it just doesn't work. So let's try out the other alternative. The other alternative is that this is an ID and that's a class, right? So if this is a class for WER, then it's this one. This rule applies. Right? This is saying that the background color is blue, but the foreground color is white. Okay. Well, we do like the foreground color white, but we don't like the background color blue. So maybe that's not it. Maybe that's not what we want. But if we put the ID here, right, then the background color is red, which is what we want, and it's going to override our background color blue, which is what we want. We want eventually to have the red background, but we still have the color white because nobody's combating that. Nobody's arguing about the foreground color, only the background color. And so we end up with the background color red, which is what we want, and the foreground color white. So the answer is that 1 is ID and 2 is a class. So this is an ID. And this is a class. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this other question. So this one is asking, okay, would the text on the real exam actually have the red background? I think so. But if not, there'll be a description. Right? There'll be a description saying that this is white on red. Also, I think I might have removed the color because some people were complaining that they were colorblind, and they could not, even though I was making it red, they could not distinguish it from gray or something, I forget. So I'll probably provide some descriptor text of it. Okay, so consider the following code snippet, right? So QWE is being assigned something, I don't know yet, right? ASD is equal to 321 and is being used to fill in this this array, right? So this 321 happens to be right here. And then QWE is being assigned in the second position of this array. Then something, right, ZXC is being assigned to this array destructor, right? And then we're displaying these two variables, right? EWQ and REW, which print out as 321, and this prints out as 234, right? So it doesn't look like these constants have been declared anywhere. So it must be that they're declared here, right? It must be that they're declared here. So either 1 is EWQ and 2 is REW, or vice versa. This is REW and this is EWQ, right? So, but we know that it has to be there because there's no other. Well, I guess it could be this one, right? Could be that we're declaring it there, right? That could be EWQ or REW. Let's take a look. Well, it can't be, right? These can't be that because we're looking at a single value. We're not saying that these print out as an array. So it can't be 4, right? So it must be one of these two. But which one? Okay, let's see. So let's say this says that prints 321. So this is 321. That's 321. And where can we grab a 321? Well, it could be from, we see a 321 here, and we see a 321 there. Okay. It's 4ZXC. 4ZXC. That is a good question, right? ZXC is not declared anywhere else, so it must be 4, right? It must be 4 being declared here. So yeah, let's do that one. That one's an easy one. So ZXC. So that's easy. So we still have to figure out what these are. So because this is being assigned here, this is a destructor. these two are assigned the first two items in the array. So these two are being assigned to these two, right? So there's your 3, 2, 1, right? Your 3, 2, 1 goes to whatever is in here. And if this is EWQ that's printed 3, 2, 1, then 1 must be EWQ, right? So that must be EWQ. And then 2, well, then by elimination, process of elimination, this must be REW. But let's check to see, let's make sure. So REW gets the value of the second position, which must be the QWE. Okay? And QWE is being assigned over here a value that must be 2, 3, 4, right? So 3 must be 2, 3, 4, right? Very good. Okay, so let's see this one. So consider code snippet. So you have a app QWE, and so this function QWE just renders as a header with the multiplication of 2 if it's arguments, and it's being invoked by app. App being the root function that gets invoked, like kind of like main in C, C++. And it's invoking QWE, and it's passing 2 values. It's passing 2 values. One value that is being passed is 9, and the other one is we're passing something else. We don't know. So these are, notice that these are attributes that are being passed to QWE, and there are 2 attributes that it's expecting. One is ZXC. It's expecting a parameter called ZXC. So, but here we're passing one called ASD. So the other one must be ZXC, right? Based on that. So one must be ZXC. Right, so one is ZXC. Then, okay, so the ZXC, we're passing 9. So ZXC is 9. The other value that we're passing is whatever value that is being passed to here. So this must be ASD, right? So 3 must be ASD if the other one is ZXC. So this is 3 is ZXC. Oh, wait, sorry. ASD, sorry, ASD. ASD. Hello, Professor. I'm curious. When we pass the integer, should we use double quotes or wrap it? Ooh, yes, good catch. Although I'm wondering if the multiplication will cast it correctly to an integer. Yes. So yeah, because here we're passing the value 9, and we're passing a second value here, right? That's going to be multiplied. And if you're going to render as 9, then the only value that could go here is 1, the value 1, right? And so the question is, we're passing it as a string, so we're receiving it as a string. Will this multiplication work, right? I'm wondering if multiplication will automatically cast the 1 into an integer. I'm not sure, but it's a good question. So here's you have consider the following code where you have a queue has an array, and we are assigning to W another array, right? That contains, looks like it's contains like a subset, right, of the old array. So it doesn't contain the 1 and 2, only contains 3, 4, 5. So there's one function, there's one array function that can do that, not map, because map creates an array of the same size. But filter creates an array that is smaller or can be smaller than the original array, right? So this could be, Q filter, right? So let's do that. It's Q, and then filter. So Q filter, and then as you're iterating, I want to keep only the values that are greater than 2, right? So it's 3, 4, 5. So as long as A is greater than 2, then it will return all the values 3, 4, 5. Right? So this is A is then greater than 2. Okay. Is it A or Q? A or Q? You mean this? That's A. That's A. You mean here? 1 is Q. Right? 1 is Q here. Right, Jane? Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So this says fill in the blanks below so that clicking button, the resulting console is 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, and 5, 6, 7. Oh no, this is use state. All right, no, this doesn't actually use use state. Let's see. Let's see if we can figure this out. Yeah, I don't like this question either. Yeah, so you have your initial value of an array QWE, which is 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it looks like it's removing 3, 4, 5. See that? So QWE in the end is going to have all the elements except that one in the middle, right? Yeah, so it has only 4 items instead of the original 5 items, right? So when you click on the button, right? So this must be on click, right? So 7 must be on click. Go to 7. So it must be on click. And so we are calling ERT, so some function. So there are 2 functions here, right? So this was called EWER, which is being called here. So the only other function must be this one, ERT. Right? So let's fill that out. So ERT. And we're passing something. What is it doing? So it looks like, so you click it, and then it does something. Looks like we are assigning to here something that we pass it to WER, and this gets assigned to QWE. So I guess it resets the value of QWE to a new value, which we then print, right? So this must be TYU, the result of having done that. Right? So T2 must be TYU. So 2 must be TYU. And so, and 1 we already have, right, with GRT. And so here we receive a value. And so to basically want to extract and skip over this value, create a new array that does not contain that value. So the only one that could do this is filter, right? So 4 must be filter, and you're filtering over what? You're filtering over QWE, I guess, right? You're filtering QWE. And so, yeah, so you're filtering over QWE. So this 3 must be QWE. And then you're filtering. Oops. Where'd filter go? Filter. So as you're filtering, you're comparing each item so that it's not something. Meaning, if it's not 3, 4, 5, for instance, then I'm going to keep the values. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, but not 3, 4, 5. Right? So as long as YUE is different than maybe the argument, and in the argument, it's this argument, we pass in 3, 4, 5 as the argument, right? So 5 would be YUI. And then this would be the parameter that we're passing, RTY. And so wait a minute, did I get this right? 8. Oh no, onClick is 7. Sorry, onClick is 7. And 8 is the value that we're skipping over, which is 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. Right? Okay. And that's it. Although I think we left a few questions above that we skipped over, right? That were somewhat challenging. So let's make sure we didn't skip one. Oh, we didn't copy. I think it was this one. Did we do this? No, we did this one. What happened to my answers? Did I fill them out? I thought I filled them out.
When it crashed, I think you closed it and opened something else.
Okay. Question A. What's the question A? Oh, yeah. Question A. Okay, so question A is fairly involved. Okay. But follow along. Let's see. So it says fill in the blank above so that if you click on link A and then you click on link B, the browser renders 7. Okay. So it all starts with this app, right? And it has browser router. Browser router is the same thing as hash router. And so you have this link. There's link A. I don't see link B. Right. Well, it turns out, and then I only have. So I have one link, but I have 2 routes. Right. So there's but I don't have any other link that would invoke the other route. Although if you look through the other 2 components, we do have another link. There's our link, right? So link B needs to render so I can click it too, but it's not clickable yet, right? So when you first visit this screen, the only thing you see is the link. You don't see any of the routes, right? Because at the beginning, the route, the path is just slash. It doesn't match any of these paths, so they don't render, right? They don't render. These 2 elements are not rendered. So the only thing that you see is the link. And so you click the link. If you click the link, let's see if it matches one of the routes, or let's see if we can make it match, right? All right, could it match the first one or the second one? Well, not the second one, right? Because this has 4 path elements and this has 3, right? But this one has 4. Right? And notice that they both end with WER. So if I click on link A, it could match this route and then render that content, right? So how can we make it so that it matches this route? Well, 2 would have to be equal to QWE, right? Let's put that. So 4 is QWE. Okay. So notice that I'm using QWE here, and I'm also using it here for the placeholder path parameter variable, right? To confuse you a little bit, right? But you're not going to be confused, right? So these are 2 placeholders. That means that if this matches that, then these 2 values, 21 and 14, are going to be matched up with this as a parameter, right? 2 star is QWE, right? 2 star, 2. What do you mean 2 star? Oh, 2 is 2, not 4. I mean 2, not 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, 2 is QWE. So anyway, so these 2 values are going to be matched up with these 2 path parameters. So this component here is going to be able to extract those 2 parameters, presumably. Let's see if anybody's doing that. Okay, there it is. So here's REW is parsing out, using use params, is parsing out those 2 parameters, QWE and WER. That one is is interested in those 2 path parameters, right? So that's kind of a clue that, so if this matches, it is REW who wants to receive those parameters, right? So 4 would be REW. That is going to parse those 2 parameters, 21 and 14, and it's going to have them available here as constants. And what does it do? It creates another link. So 6 must be a link, right? So 6 is link. And this new link, right, in code /ASD /21, well, whatever that is, or 14. Wait, what is it? QWE is 21, so QWE is 21, so 21 and 14. So 14 and 21 here, right? 14 and 21. So it encodes that so that if we click it, there's our link B, see that? If we click it, it's gonna match, it has to match that second route, right? That has 3 path parameters or path parts that have to match these 3 parts, right? For it to match, it would have to start with an ASD. So this would have to be with an ASD, right? So ASD for this to work. And it would have path parameters ZXC and XCV, which are the 21 and 14 that we're encoding in the URL, right? So if we click in link B, it's passing 14 and 21. Isn't a semicolon after export? Default function name mandatory. Wait, hold on. Isn't semicolon after export? Semicolon after export. Oh, here? No. Yeah, semicolons in JavaScript are optional. Why is 4 REW? 4. Because REW is trying to parse these 2 parameters, right? Well, I mean, 4 could be what? 4 could be either ASD or REW. It could be one or the other, yes? If it were ASD, say this is the ASD, then it would render here. And it would try to parse ZXC and XCV, which it cannot, right? Because I am calling these as QWE and WER, right? It cannot parse anything from there. So these would be empty. These would be null. They could not parse, and then you would not be able to do this subtraction, right? And also, I don't get link B. Right? I don't get link B, so I can't click it, and I can't go any further, right? So for this to work is that this is REW, because then I get my second link. It parses those 2 parameters, right, encoded there, right? It encodes them in here, that when I click it, then allows me to go to ASD here, right? So 5 is ASD. Which ASD can then, right, extract ZXC and XCV parameters, which have been encoded with 21 and 14. So I read here my 21 and 14, I parse them as integers, and then I do 21 minus 14, and I get a 7, right? Which is what I'm looking for, right? So this would have to be one of these. I forget which one is which, but this is either QWE or WER. I don't know what the order in which they got encoded. And so this would be QWE and WER, or vice versa. QWE and WER. Okay. There's another one. Which one was it? The following codes. Yeah, we did that one. Let me see. There was another one that was skipped. We skipped over another one. What was it? We did that one. We did that one. Was it this one? 6? No, we did that one too. Anyone remember? I think we're done, right? Okay. Yeah, so there we go. So that's the exam. Sure, let me share this version. I'll post it on Piazza. Or can I share it with you here? File, can I? I don't know. Your computer. File. Can I do it? Let me see. Where's NU? NU. 23. Well, this one. I think it's this one. It's this one, right? Well, no, that one doesn't have the answers. What's going on? Wait a minute. Yeah, that one has it, right? What? Where are all the answers? What the? Oh my goodness. What do with all my answers? Okay, preview sucks. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. I'll see what I can do. How many questions like the ones you don't like are there going to be on the exam? Maybe 2. But I'll make it more clearer. In particular, I will make it explicit that that in most questions you can answer them with just the letters from A to Z, right, and the numbers 0 through 9, right? That you don't need square brackets, periods, colon, any special characters, arrows, blah, 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 none of that. Also, the I didn't have here any examples of use state. So what you should expect for use state is maybe 2-3 questions on use state. Very similar to the small little examples that we did in the lab, right? Where I ask you to flip a Boolean or set the string variable inside of an object, okay, or do some trivial array manipulation where you add an element at the end of an array. Okay. All right. All right, everyone. That's all I have for you. Anything else? In case there are some trivial questions that might take some more time, try by compiling. Is it possible to extend the time? You mean more than 100 minutes? Sure.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.